that makes it, and how it creates lasting change beyond the coaching session. Finally, we have arranged several live coaching demonstrations where you can experience the process in real time and witness the change outcome firsthand. In fact, there have been so many sessions this week, and I have particularly made it a point to attend most of them. You know, there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this year's International Coaching Week, that has been my experience. Being a student and being ready, I've really engaged, and I'm sure as most of you have, and learned so much. So we offer these events in 4 different time zones, time slots each day. We've got 3 p.m. Singapore, 8 p.m. Singapore, 7 p.m. Dubai, and 6 p.m. London, which you are currently on. And tomorrow, I think tomorrow is the last day. This has been running from Monday till now, so 16th to 20th. Tomorrow is our last day, unfortunately, but there's still lots of goodies coming up. So if you missed Making Change Come Alive by Azadeh and Andrea, it'll be a good time to hop on tomorrow. We've also got Mastering Your Inner Game by Ivan. That's going to be at 8 p.m. Singapore. And if you missed the keynote address by our founder, catch it again tomorrow at 11 p.m. Singapore, which is Bridging the Science to the Art of Coaching. And last but not the least, we've also got our last session at 6 p.m. London, Choosing Gratitude by Lena, Magda, and Maribel. So make it a point to try and join any of these. Now I'm going to put a link in our chat to so that you can check out what other events we have. I mean, you can get the links there to register for the event. And we've got loads of webinars and all sorts of good stuff on the website. So check it out. I will copy the link and put it in the chat. Just bear with me a moment. Sorry. Okay. Now, as you know, CMA is a global academy, and we just love to know and hear where our participants are coming from. So I'm going to drop a Mentimeter in the chat. For you to let us know where you're calling from. And whilst I'm sorting that out, could I kindly invite a few faculty members to just say hi to our participants. So any faculty member to share, to say hello to our participants?
Hello, everyone. I would like to greet the most diligent students. I see the same faces. Bravo to wonderful students, ladies who are really attending almost every event during this week. Well done. It's fantastic. I'm here with you. So, and tonight I'm looking forward, really. I'm so excited about John and Abiola's session. I was looking forward to it. Put it in my calendar. The topic is, from my point of view, something that is so much related yet to our focus as coaches. And I just love these ladies. So looking forward to learn and to gain new insights and new perspectives on developing human potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Is there any other faculty who would like to say hi? I've dropped the Mentimeter in the chat box for just for you to tell us where you're calling from. I've seen that we've got a few responses from Port Harcourt, Nigeria, Uganda, etc. Okay, is there any other faculty who'd like to say hello?
I can go.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Great to see people from all over the world. And here I am from little New Zealand joining you as well. I've worked closely with Abiola, and she was my teacher not so long ago. So it is great to be here and see a different skill set that she brings to the space, and really honored to be part of it, and can't wait to hear what you guys have to offer. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Manju. Okay, I'm not quite, I don't know whether you were able to access the Mentimeter. Anybody? One?
No.
No, yeah, because I'm not seeing anything. Well, we've got people, let me just go through the chat. We've got Nigeria, like I said, Uganda, Nigeria, Uganda, Dubai, Italy, Uganda again, Kenya, and UK. So I think probably Uganda and Nigeria seem to be leading this at the moment. Awesome. So before we, I just want to make a little announcement here that, you know, these webinars are, you can earn an ICF CCE certificate from attending this webinar. CMA just asked that you make a $20 contribution towards their social enterprise. They've been supporting the underprivileged in Pakistan, and you know we've got evidence of the work there. It's really awesome. So you could just purchase this as, it's not really purchase, it's really a contribution of $20 towards letting this count towards your CCE. Okay. So we come to the business of the day. So today we're going to be talking about the paradox of team and individual coaching. And I love the title because I think even in the title, we can get a hint of what's coming. And this is going to be presented by our very own homegrown Abiola Orojo and Joan Mugenzi. And I'll just give a little background introduction for each of them. And I will start with Joan. So Joan is CMA's Director of Training for Uganda. She's an ICF credentialed professional certified coach and the founding president of ICF Uganda. As an executive coach and certified team coach, Joan has worked with executive leaders in the private as well as the public sector. And she's really also worked in doing this work. She's actually worked in close to 30 countries. Amazing. Specializing in employment transition, Joan wholly believes in the need for people to experience professional coaching and absolutely enjoys facilitating these insightful conversations with her clients. Now, Abiola is Coach Master Academy's Director of Training in Nigeria. She's also conducted a lot of coach certification training over the past 4 years to a global audience, virtually as well as in person. She is credentialed by ICF as a professional certified coach, and she supports organizations as a certified executive coach and team coach. Abiola leverages over 28 years work experience in the corporate world to support executives in various industries to think outside the box in ways not previously considered, using the transformative coaching methodology and approach, which offers awareness, insight, and clarity to help individuals as well as teams embrace desired change required to achieve more fulfilling and meaningful business outcomes. So, dear audience, I present to you Joan and Abiola. Abiola, you're on mute.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that we're able to have this webinar with Joan. And as you have seen or heard from Susan, we're looking at how coaching works, and we're looking at how it works in team coaching in the workplace. So I'm going to hand over to Joan to start off, and then I'll take over from her. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Abiola. Thank you, Susan. A very good evening to some of you who are in this time zone. A very good morning. Like I know Singapore, it's 1 a.m. So surely we are blessed that you can be on the line at 1 a.m. and good afternoon. So whichever part of the world you're coming from, we are in 4 different time zones that we are serving. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see all the familiar faces. Thank you for honoring the invitation. And for the CMA family, it's always good to connect. Zoom has made us connect to one another. We are continually learning. And this week is a very special week because we know it is the International Coaching Week. And as CMA, we have run it under the theme Coaching Works. And so it's very exciting. And so when we're even thinking about what we are going to present about, we thought, okay, what are the things that we are seeing in this part of the world, in Africa? What are the trends that we are seeing? And we thought, yeah, coaching works. So let's look at the paradox that is in the one-to-one and team coaching. Susan, are you able to run the poll before we start? You're on mute.
I was saying, let me share my screen and grab that for you.
Okay.
But I think there should be a link. Let me just check. Wait. Give me one. I can't seem to get it on the Zoom. So perhaps we can just let them respond in the chat. Would that work?
Yes, it will work. We just want to have a sense of who is on the call. So I'll give you the opportunity to ask the questions, and then myself and Abiola will be following in the chat bar to see what the responses are, to just get a general sense of who is on the call.
So the questions are, we'd like to find out from you whether you are a team leader, a team member, or a professional coach. So that is question 1.
Okay, so you can start with question 1
Mm-hmm.
and just type in. Thank you, Louise, professional coach, team leader, okay. Student, professional coach, team member, team leader, professional coach, yes, happy to see all of you on the call. So we mainly have team leaders and professional coaches. That is what it seems like. All of them. Certainly, my suspicion is that everyone on the call is a team member somewhere. What we are really looking for is more of what is that primary responsibility as we get onto this call. Thank you for giving us an idea of who is on the call. The second question, Susan.
And the second question is, we would like to find out whether you've experienced one-to-one coaching, team coaching, both or none. So one-to-one coaching, team coaching, both or none? Okay.
Okay, great. That means that we are not going to be speaking to strangers, strangers to the coaching world, because people have experienced either one-to-one coaching or team coaching or both. So if you have experienced one or the other, it's okay. It's just giving us a good starting point to understand how are we connecting. So I'm going to share my slide, and then we'll start us off, and I will invite Abiola thereafter. So like I did mention when we were starting out, that when we were thinking about what menu we could provide on the table tonight, we just thought, let's tap from our experience, because Abiola and myself have worked together for a while. Abiola and myself were in the same class, same coaching class when Coach Masters Academy first came to Uganda. So we are cohort number 133. Those in the Coach Masters Academy know what that means, because right now we are 300 something, I think about 327. So our cohort was cohort 133 in 2018. And that means we've grown together, and then we've had opportunities to practice. And in our practice, we have done both individual and team coaching. Both of us are professional certified coaches, but we are also both certified team coaches. And so we want to talk about this thing called, the paradox in individual and team coaching in light of maximizing human potential, because as you've heard, the theme for our session for this entire week is coaching works. What usually happens is that when we are conducting team coaching, rather coaching of any kind, the people that show up are either the team leaders, because there are things that they are trying to grapple with, or it will be individuals that come seeking out for coaching. And in this case, we want to kind of restrict ourselves to the workplace. And so people will come with certain problem situations, a challenge that is at work, a concern, or they have a project that they are excited about, but then they are wondering, how are they going to move it forward? So in most cases, probably you're going to be talking to the sponsor of this activity. And when we talk sponsor in the coaching lingua, we are really talking about the person who is contracting us as coaches. And that is the person who will try to explain what is going on. And so in that moment, for us as coaches, what we are trying to do is to understand what is happening, because clearly, like you see this representation, there's some bit of headache that is going on. And that is where we start at, just to understand what is the issue at hand and how do we go about it. And then we tend to kind of have a dilemma when we are starting out, because usually the question is, do we go for a one-to-one or do we go for a one-to-many? One-to-many for the coaches on the call, if you're not yet into the team lingua, one-to-many simply means team coaching. And usually when we are looking at this, it is informed by, let me first stop this. It's really informed by the understanding that in most cases, when we are having conversations in the space where we are operating, the people that come on board are usually your executive leaders, the executive teams, the C-suite. Those are the ones that are coming in. And here is what is kind of interesting. In most cases, when at least 80 to 90% of those conversations, when the people come for the coaching conversations, guess what they are talking about? They're talking about the team. But then the team members are not in the room. So literally you're supporting the leader to kind of lessen the burden that they have. And so now the question becomes, at what point do you get them into the room? And so usually that is the question that is really, really challenging in terms of understanding how do you then move forward with the conversation. Do you go with the one-to-one coaching? Do you go with the one-to-many? That becomes the key thing that they're asking for. And of course, in that moment, as coaches, we are also trying to support the institutions that are trying to take up this service to ask what would be the greatest benefit, because you are already making the investment. So where do you see the greatest investment, especially looking at the fact that many of these contracts run from anywhere between 6 months to 12 months of our engagement. And so when we think about the one-to-one coaching, there's that excitement. The leader is happy because at the end of the day, they've had their sessions, and guess what? They've had a lot of reflection. In fact, yesterday and today have been very amazing days, because I have 2 of my clients that were really excited to just give me feedback in terms of what is happening. And, one of them told me, one of my matrices has gone into green and it's a point of celebration. There's another thing I was grappling with. Even my supervisor can see that there's a huge difference in terms of what is happening. Another one, we had a call this evening, and then they told me, you know what, today I just want to give you an update of what has been happening. And you can see that there's a lot that is exciting them. And guess what? The celebrations they are having are a reflection on what is happening in their teams because of their own reflection that they have done. Because when they come to these conversations, we enable them to kind of heighten their awareness, because at CMA, we do transformative coaching. And what really this means is that you give people the space to do an introspection, to look within and learn from their experiences. When we are engaging our clients, we are looking at them to figure out what are they experiencing in the moment as they're having these conversations. And out of that understanding, the number of things, perspectives that will shift for them, they will be thinking about, any behavior change that is supposed to happen, the perspective shift. But then we are supporting the leader to understand their own relationship with the team. And that is what we are looking for, to say what is going to happen. Now, in terms of the one-to-many or team coaching, what is different is that you're looking at this client as one voice, as a single voice that is coming in. You're not listening to separate voices. And therefore, here is an opportunity where we say, can we have a conversation where these things that we are hearing from the leaders that are actually impacting on the team, is there a way to bring them together? And the starting point is for us to have an understanding of the team, that they have a shared purpose in terms of whatever it is that they are experiencing. And then we work with the principle of generativity, where we know that, well, when the team comes together, you're going to have a general sense of team awareness, clarity, alignment that pops up, and then creative action. Because remember, you're supporting them to serve their shared purpose. And our major role as coaches is to champion, challenge, and collaborate. Because the moment you come into a situation where you have that team together, the first question you ask them is to figure out, why are they here in the first place? Do they understand why they're here? Has the team leader articulated the direction that they want to take? What is the major reason why they come here? And we spend a lot of time coming up with the teaming agreements. In the one-to-one setting, the setting is such that it is restricted with your individual client. So there isn't much that you're going to juggle. It's just that individual client. You come up with a coaching agreement and it's clear. When it comes to the team, you're understanding the coaching agreement from the sponsor's side. You're trying to see how is it shifting, how is the needle shifting, and then we say, okay, can we come up with teaming agreements now that we have a shared purpose and a given direction that we are trying to follow? And so that enables the team to start on a basis where they are all excited about what it is that they are going to share about. And the other thing is that in most cases, you're looking at a solution really that is, that you're trying to resolve, but then it is future pointed. And the good news is you're looking at team sovereignty and sustainability to get the team to that point where it is self-managing. And what is interesting that by the end of that process, probably 9 months, 12 months, you're literally handing over your role as coach to the leader to take on the hat of a coach. And what you've heightened here is systemic self-awareness. And there's a professional guru that I want to share about, Patrick Lencioni, that shares a lot about teams, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And when we think about team coaching, we see it as one of those key interventions that would enable us work around it. So I just want to play a short video. Oops, where is it? Thought I had penned it. Looks like I just lost my video.
Let me see if I can. I think I had it opened.
Okay, if you have it open, please
help
me share it. That would be great.
Okay,
Thank
give me
you.
1 second. Can you hear? I think when I use my headphones. Let me know.
In a healthy organization, the first and most important
hear?
discipline is the building of a cohesive leadership team at the top. And that entails the overcoming of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which I'm going to review very quickly here. The first dysfunction of a team is the absence of trust. Trust is critical on a team. It's the foundation of teamwork. And what it requires is that people get vulnerable with one another, that they're very open about who they are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, if they've made a mistake. Without trust, we cannot build a team. Specifically because without trust, we can't overcome the second dysfunction, which is the fear of conflict. You see, conflict is not only okay on a team or even good, it's necessary and required. We have to engage in conflict. And when we have trust, conflict becomes nothing but the passionate pursuit of truth or the best possible answer. Why is conflict so important? Because without it, we're going to encounter the third dysfunction of a team, which is the lack of commitment. Teams that don't engage in open, honest conflict don't really commit to the decisions they make. They're passive about it. Commitment is when everybody truly buys in because they've weighed in on a decision and they realize that's what they're all going to stick with. Now, why is commitment so important? Because without it, we're going to encounter the fourth and most common dysfunction of a team, which is the inability of people to hold each other accountable. Accountability is so important on a team. When people have committed, they're going to have more courage to actually confront one another about shortcomings in their behavior and their performance. And why is that accountability so important? Because if people aren't holding each other accountable, they're going to encounter the next and final dysfunction, which is the inattention to results. Now, you might say, well, what are people paying attention to if not results? Well, maybe it's not the collective results of the team they're interested in, but just their own individual results, their budget, their department, their staff. If we're going to focus on the collective results of the team, we have to trust one another, we have to engage in healthy conflict, we have to commit to decisions, hold one another accountable for those, and achieve true collective results. Those are the 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. I guess you can clearly see what happens in terms of teams, and I'm sure for many of us, we can even identify with the fact that we are always looking for results. We are demanding for results. We are demanding for commitments. But what Lencioni is telling us, if we are going to have the upper 2 items, we need to start with building this thing called trust. How do we work around building that trust? Because where you have trust, you're going to have the healthy conflicts. Because their conflicts are inevitable. Guess what? Because we are not always reading from the same page, but we all have our independent minds. And that is one of the things that, when we are talking about our transformative coaching, we keep on saying, create the space for the mind, expand the mind, create that space. Each one of us has a mind. Now, imagine when you bring these people together. And so that is why we thought this is something that we can still talk about and link it to the different things that we are talking sharing. And what has some of the research shown, there's the folk wisdom actually reminds us the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. But a lot of what will get us to the trust level that we are looking at, Woolley and others in 2010 came to the conclusion that social sensitivity of team members, specifically the ability to read each other's emotions and take turns talking, was a more predictor of high collective intelligence than the general intelligence of team members. So what we need to realize here is that every time we are thinking about the team and looking for that collective voice, it's going to start somewhere, and that somewhere is the trust. That's why we have to be sensitive to the needs of the different members of the team. Another Harvard professor, Edmondson, found that teams in which members felt safe showed stronger social intelligence. And how does he define psychological safety? A sense of confidence that the team will not embarrass, reject, or punish someone for speaking up. But usually when these things are happening, there are several interventions that are related to team coaching. And these interventions, definitely as team leaders on the call and as members, that maybe in some cases things have not been working out, and guess what? You reach out and say, I want a team building activity. So people go play games 1.5 days, 2 days. I've come across clients who ask me, but what happens? We bring in people live here when they are charged and they go. This is a very short-term intervention. Okay, there's also the team training. Given the gap that you would have seen in the team, you can offer training, you can offer consulting, you can offer mentorship, or you can even offer the team facilitation. Of course, when it comes to us in terms of engaging, in terms of team coaching, the first place that we start is the team facilitation, because the conversations that I am talking about are conversations that start at the negotiation level. The difference for us as coaches, what you need to realize that in order for you to pull off team coaching, a lot of your work is at the contracting level, not during the coaching sessions. If the contracting has not been done right, whatever you do will not give you the results that you're looking for, because the team has to start on the same page. But before the team gets onto that same page, the team leader who is deciding that they want a coach on board, the sponsor who feels that the team needs support is the starting point. And so with that, I'm going to ask Abiola to take us through the next part of the presentation, and then we shall have a quick reflection after. Over to you, Abiola.
Thank you so much, Joan, for that background. And where we're taking this conversation is to begin to ask ourselves the question, yes, one-to-one coaching is actually at the executive level is supposed to support the executive to get into a space of reflection, a space of having different perspectives about themselves and also the way they relate to the teams. Now, organizations most times look at executive coaching, one-to-one coaching, or even coaching the leaders to ensure that they begin to show up differently in terms of their leadership effectiveness. Now, we know that a lot of budget is tied to this exercise. It is really not cheap to have coaches, executives on a one-to-one coaching initiative, which usually sometimes lasts between 6 to 9 months or sometimes 12 months. Now, the question that we're looking at now that we need to begin at to say, how can we ensure that the impact of coaching in terms of the one-to-one, which is currently working, very successful, has the impact on the organization, on the organization. How can we look at a more enhanced way of impacting the team, rather than the leader taking what his own perception and mindset shift and beginning to work on the team in silos. What we're looking at now is how do we use team coaching in a systemic way to really bring multiple impact into the organization. And just permit me to share my screen to start this conversation here. Can we see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. So now, in reality, as a coach, as a professional coach, when we go into an organization and we have an engagement to coach on a one-to-one basis, what we are offering the client or the organization is that we are partnering with the executives. We are giving them the opportunity to have change in thinking patterns, looking at their thought processes. We also serve as a mirror and as a reflection. We stand to begin to show them things that they don't see, things that they don't, that are probably blind spots for them as leaders. So we also coach them in the moment. We begin to let them understand some of their belief systems, their perspectives, values that impact their leadership capability and competencies. We also help them to understand their emotions better, how this impacts their teams, and what are those concerns, challenges, problems, or even opportunities that they may begin to look into and begin to work on for them to be effective leaders, effective team leaders. Now, that is a good process, but we want to take it one step further. And what we're looking at is how we can coach teams in such a way that the teams become the client for the coach. And what we are looking at is how do we coach the team in such a way that they will have one voice in terms of their purpose, in terms of who they stand for as a team, what they stand for as a team. How do they understand themselves as a team? How do they begin to relate with themselves in such a way that holistically the coach can help them in that process? And like Joan said, the most important thing from that video is looking at trust, looking at ability to communicate, because communicate, even if we have conflicts, for us to have healthy conversations, to have those conversations that would enable us to see ourselves in a better understanding, have better understanding, have the learning about who we are as a team and how we are going to change to support ourselves to make a better team and have more impact, better impact for the organization. So even though we are coaching the team as a client with one voice, what we need to have at the back of our mind is that there is diverse behavior in the room. We have diverse feelings. We have diverse thoughts. We have diverse ambition. And these are the concerns, the problems, the issues that really dogs the organization. This is what brings about those conflicts, those mistrust, the lack of commitment, because there is a disconnect between the people in the room and the vision and the goal that they really want to achieve in the organization. Sorry, I can't see my slide again. Can you see my slide? No, okay, I think it came off. Let me put it back. Can you see it now? Okay, it's good. So moving forward, for some reason my slide has, okay, now. So having this at the back of our mind, I'm using this framework by Peter Hawkins. He's really the father of systemic team coaching. And what does that mean? What systemic team coaching is about how the teams can relate with the systems in the organization. Why do we want to focus on why do professional coaches want to focus on the systems of an organization regarding the teams? The reason is that it goes beyond the individuals in the team. With that, we can resolve that with one-to-one coaching. We have things like, how do they relate with each other? And the undertones between in their interpersonal relationship are things like these trust issues, conflict issues, commitment issues, accountability issues. So how do we have interpersonal relationship? How can a coach help the team to see themselves? How can a coach help the team to let the team understand how they relate interpersonally? We also have a third layer, which is the team task, in terms of the clarity of purpose and decision making. How is that working out within the teams? Another layer is the relationship in terms of their dynamics, how they communicate, how they challenge themselves openly. When we listen to Lencioni, he said that if we don't have healthy conflicts and we don't have a process where we can sit down in the room and have those conversations, those candid conversations, then we are not going to be able to focus on the holistic results that the organization is looking for. It will be more of siloed results, siloed performance, and a situation where we are just ring-fencing our units or our departments or the team that we are in charge. But when we bring the team into the room and we put the team coaching intervention in place, we find that we are able to put a process in place where the team also can look at outside their environment, the inner caucus, and begin to look at how stakeholder interferes, how the interface of stakeholder, how they can also look at their relationship. How is their relationship across business silos? And of course, the last lens or the last layer is the wider systemic context, which is where we look at external environmental impact on the team, or the impact that the team has on the environment. Now, these lenses is really what the coach goes into the meeting or into the coaching conversation with, and allows the team to begin to reflect on the way they see, the lens in which they see all these layers. What we have is that initially or usually, teams focus primarily on tasks, their team tasks, their purpose, their goals, their objectives, their roles. This is more or less the task aspect of, I'm not sure whether, okay, yes, this is the slide. That's the task side of team development, where the vision is already known, the shared sense of purpose is clear, the objectives are prioritized, the team have the clear roles, and usually they probably have a team charter. This task side of team development is usually concretized, is usually put in place through facilitation process. John talked about other interventions, so you can take them to a strategy session, maybe have a day or 2 days, where they would begin to carve out these aspects of the team. They come out after maybe the facilitation, and they said they have a shared purpose. They can define it. They can prioritize the objective. They have a plan in terms of what goals would look like in the next 12 months. They also look at what are the strategic drivers of these goals? What would good look like at the end of 12 months? They commit to what they want to achieve. This is the task side. Now, where coaching, team-based coaching really comes in is when we want to look at the human side. And the human side is based on how can the team coaching process bring to the open the way the team collaborates, how they have interpersonal relationships, what are their behavioral rigidities. In terms of creativity, what would they be looking out for? What is standing in the way of all this? How resourceful are they to be able to attend to the things that are standing in the way, or the things that they need to be open to talk about and communicate? So we can see that when a coach decides to bring, or an organization begins to intervene in the way the dynamics of the team is positioned, is looking beyond the tasks, that is the goals, the visions, the priority, the objectives, and the roles. It's more about how do we relate with each other? How do we show up? How do we have a team charter? How do we imbibe the team charter? So the coaching conversation is about the coach, that is the team, which is the clients in this instance. How do they see themselves as a whole? How do they begin to view things with a common sense of purpose? How do they see communication? How do they see the way they resolve conflicts? How do they agree to disagree? These are the things that the coach supports in the process. Now, just like one-to-one coaching is a process, this team coaching is also a process. It's a process of heightening the awareness of the team. It's a process of bringing out their understanding and their learning. And it's a process of supporting them to make that mindset shift over the coaching period. So coaching a team can also span a period of 12 months. It could be 4 months, it could be 6 months. Now, the goal that they set for each coaching session is one thing that they would have brought up at their tasks when they're doing their task development, when they're doing the facilitation stage, when they agree on what their clear objectives are. But then they take that into the coaching session and begin to look at the undertones in terms of what are those things that we are not clear about, or that we are blindsided to. Things like trust. Why is it, what do we have trust issues? Do we have conflict issues? Where are we conflicted? What is standing in the way of our commitment? And are we taking ownership of what we agree to? So at the end of each team coaching conversation, you find that the team agrees and they go away with actions and commitments, just like you would find it in the one-to-one coaching conversation. Now, what is the outcome of this? The outcome is that the whole begins to become more than the sum of the parts. For one-to-one coaching, you just see people working in silos. defending their turfs. But when we have bring the team together, it becomes systemic, it becomes wholeness, it becomes a way in which they begin to see themselves as one voice. And with that, the team dynamics begins to change. The cultural dynamics begin to change. And the way they communicate within themselves and stakeholder communications becomes more engaged, more result-oriented. And ultimately, you begin to have clearer goals that are achievable with each team member on the same page that they can commit to, and they can also begin to become accountable for. Now, how do you see this in terms of the paradox that we are talking about? Okay, so before I go into the paradox, so the coaching conversation, the mindset that the coach goes into a coaching conversation is teasing out how the teams can be more candid and honest. How can they have difficult conversations, being able to agree from a place of clarity, adapting flexibility to each other's preferences, such that they are able to co-relate, cohabitate, coexist in a fruitful and supportive manner. Then how can the coach support them to live a culture of ongoing commitment and accountability? How are they able, how will the team be able to explore their interdependencies and decision rights? What really should they be talking about? Are they honest? Do they have frank and honest conversations? What is it? Are they looking at possibilities? How can they have a mindset shift and begin, when we are coaching one-to-one, we talk about loss frame and gain frame, where the client is really not showing the possibility of moving forward. The same also happens in the team, where we have fear, we have mistrust. The coach is going to support them to begin to see possibilities within themselves. Help them to become more energized towards their goals, towards their common vision. Okay, so wherein lies this paradox that we are talking about? The paradox that we're looking at is that initially we will say one-to-one coaching, the executive would be empowered to go back to the team and make the change in the team. But what we are saying is that that is not sustainable enough. The sustainable change that we are looking for is embedded cultural shifts and behavioral shifts in the teams. We are looking at transforming a learning environment into a growth environment where individual personal learning of the team members becomes a value add, becomes a growth opportunity that will support the teams to have repeated and continuous behavioral change. We're also looking at team voice. It gives the team perspectives and prompts their reflection. A team coach must be able to garner the team in such a way that they are reflective. They are able to see where they are and where they're supposed to be and what is standing in their way. So the reflection will prompt awareness, and awareness is the key to individual personal growth. So when we have individual personal growth, their collaborative capacity becomes enlarged, becomes open. They're able to talk freely and they're able to make the changes that is desired. Ultimately, this will improve the organization and make the results sustainable and also ongoing. I would stop here and hand over to Joan to actually give us a case study. And the case study is going to help us to look at where an organization brought in a coach, a team coach, to support them to look at how the team can be better effective. But the approach was the standard approach of coaching on a one-to-one basis. And John is going to put us through that and help us look at the missed opportunities that really existed in this case, in this scenario. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Abiola. Wow, quite a lot of reflection from that part of the presentation. I can see Louise is smiling away. Oops. Yeah, so this is an example of a real case scenario that we came across. We are looking at a premium African financial services group that offers life protection, general insurance, savings, and all that across Africa and China. And in the last 10 years, it embarked on organic and inorganic growth strategies to reposition themselves for the market. We are always doing that, repositioning ourselves so that, we have profitability, competitiveness, and efficiency. So the need for focused attention on building the ExCo as a cohesive and matured business leaders, because this was an executive, it's an ExCo that we are looking at. The need for a mindset shift from being primary functional heads and individual representatives of their teams to that of shared ExCo ownership, so that ExCos understand their roles and engage in that role as it were. The need to break down the silos that were caused by cultural and tribal affiliations, the need for leaders to open and be courageous to challenge ideas and at the same time be accommodative and focused on the same cause of the ExCo team, the need for leaders to demonstrate buy-in into the organization's vision, goals, and strategy as an integral part of their leadership assignment. What do we see as the intervention here? On the task side, 2 days facilitation on the following themes: having clarity around purpose and goals, the team membership and acceptance, team meetings, decision-making and conflict resolution, trust and behavior, creativity and innovation. And what happens? The intervention here is a 4-month one-to-one coaching session with the leaders on the agreed coaching. Now, Abiola has just taken us through the understanding of the fact that when we are in teams, there is the side of the team tasks, and then we get onto the human development side. Clearly, through the facilitation, you can see the tasks that were spelled out. Very beautifully nailed down to issues of trust and all. And guess what the intervention is? 4-month intervention, one-to-one coaching. And by the way, this is a huge leadership team of about 15 people. Now you can imagine how many coaching sessions those are that each one of them is going to receive over time. But remember, the things that they are grappling with are collaboration issues, their trust issues. So every member is going to come in and talk about the process by themselves. They are simply reflecting on themselves as those individuals. And so what we are seeing here is that there is this missed opportunity, because if they came together, they are coming from a retreat and they agreed. So when you start on this journey, the intervention that you're looking for is to say, hey, this is what we agreed to in our retreat. We came back excited from this retreat, and these are the things that we agreed on. Are we still on the same page? Why are we here? What are the agreements that are going to move us forward? Actually, in team coaching, those agreements are your guidelines. They are your guidelines. You hold them close to the chest, because at any one time when people are diverting off the agreements, it's what you put back to them and ask, are we adding something else to the agreements? Because everybody contributed to that. Remember, it's the whole session to get to the teaming agreements. It's not something that you just come up and say, let me write 1, 2, 3 things because the team leader has told me this. No, remember that team leader is passing on authority to the team. And so in most cases here, what you're looking for is to ask the team leader, how much commitment are they making to this process? Yes, we've gone for a retreat. Yes, we have come back. We have a list of things that we want to work on. Are we truly committed to this process? Have you even committed resources to that process? How much power are you giving them? And so when you're working around the teaming agreements, that's the point at which you're holding the team true to the agreements that they are setting up, but you're also asking the team leader to commit in the open with all these people, what is going to happen. And in some cases, some team leaders might say, you know what, work with the team without myself, because I want them to be free. I want them to be authentic. In other cases, they will say, no, I'm going to be part of the process. And sometimes they'll have a one-to-one that is going to happen. So what can happen? You could also have a combo where you're saying, okay, how many coaching conversations are we talking about here? Could we probably say, instead of a monthly conversation with everybody, let us have some teaming conversations going on, and on a needs basis, do the one-to-one coaching, because in some cases you could find that even within the team space, maybe the leader is actually resistant because you're observing that, because there are behaviors that you might be able to call out on the spot, and there are behaviors where you still need to hold the dignity of the individual and say, you know what, I think you're becoming the problem in your own team, because we are looking at how are they working together. You are looking at the beingness of the team, so that at the end of the day, they can be there could be team sovereignty, they're self-managing. And like we said, the beauty with team coaching is that once they have gone through a process like that, guess what? They are now free, they've gelled. This becomes a replicable behavior. So thank you so much for listening. Over to you. Abiola, is there anything that you want to tag to that case study before I hand it over to Sue? You're on mute.
Thank you. So thank you so much. I think in wrapping it up, it's just to say that coaching works, whether it's for in one-to-one or to team coaching. But when we're looking at sustainable results in terms of the organization, talking about return on investment, it is better to look at team coaching, because you're going to get cultural behaviors embedded. You're going to have replicity in terms of values, in terms of shared purpose, and you've, as John put it, the team becomes sovereign. Not only the team lead. The team becomes sovereign, and they can replicate themselves, because they become role models for new people coming in and for other team members around them. So that is what I want us to take away. And looking at the cost of coaching, it's better to ensure that you combine these two in a way that you get the best of team coaching for the organization. Thank you for listening. And I think we're open to questions now.
Wow. I think our two presenters deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much, Joan and Abiola, for that insightful presentation. I certainly have had my perception of teams shifted. As you were speaking, I was just thinking, all I could think of was, it's almost as if they're a whole force and entity, as you're saying, of their own. And I found it interesting with the case study where they came together and then went apart to come together, which, as we've learned today, isn't really the best option to take. So thank you very much. I'll now open the floor for questions. There's a question in the Q&A. Would you like me to read that out first, and then we take from the audience? Is that okay?
That should be fine. I think take a couple of them, then we'll respond after.
Okay. So Priscilla is asking, how does a coach facilitate the team through the different phases of team development? Storming, norming, forming, etc. How do you move the team forward And how do you decide the right focus? Is it the logic or knowledge of the purpose and shared objective, or the relational connectivity aspects, aka the chemistry of the team, and what is more effective? It's a bit of a
Okay.
long one, but I think you can both.
Yes, I can. I think I can actually answer that.
Okay.
So the first aspect of it, in terms of the stages of team development and coaching. So when we look at the process, we have a pre-program. I think John mentioned it earlier on. That's the preparation. This is where the coach is learning about the team. They are informing the coach is learning about the team. The coach is gathering information about the mandate, the assignment, looking at the challenges, their work environment. So that is some things that he would do. He could do one-to-one conversations. He could also go and speak to the sponsors in this regard. Now, he's going to collect all those information. You can do questionnaire, or you can also look at their profiling or their performance result. It can take an array of data to understand what the team stands for, how they are, in terms of the task aspect. You can gather a lot of information. The data is usually very available. Now, the forming stage is usually where you have the kickoff workshop, the kickoff workshop. So it's where the team come together through facilitation, where they plan their journey, they set their goals and obtain agreements. Usually it's the agreement on their vision, just confirming their vision, confirming their shared goals, confirming the strategic drivers relating to their goals, and also looking at putting together a team charter. That is forming stage. Now, when we look at, they come out from that facilitation of maybe a day or two, we are now moving them into the storming stage, where they begin to get to know each other, testing each other, challenging each other, questioning each other in a coaching conversation. So the coach is facilitating that process. By the time they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions, they start to reach consensus. They start to gain the trust, and they get into the flow. You have moved them into the norming phase. And then obviously, performance stage is when they are now embedded in a behavior that will begin to achieve results, achieve new standards of performance, becoming transformational. And then I add one more phase to it. That's the transforming phase, where there is celebration, recognizing the contribution of team members, giving thanks and acknowledgement. And that is how the coach can support the client through those stages of team growth with coaching. I hope that answers your question, Cecilia.
Okay. Okay.
And then I think the second one, I'm not sure whether we would have answered that I don't know at what time, what point you brought it. Said, how do we move the team forward, and how do you decide the right focus? They agree in terms of their focus. They agree usually at the facilitation stage. They already reconfirm and affirm their purpose, their shared purpose. And then it is in the coaching sessions that they begin to look at relational connectivity, the chemistry. What are the trust issues? What are those things that they need to begin to shift as a team in terms of behavior, in terms of mindset, and etc. So that is it.
Thank you, Abiola.
Thank you.
I think there's another question there, but I think let's take one from the floor, then we'll come back to the next question. Is that okay? Does anybody else have a question?
Yes.
There was a hand, but probably the person has dropped off.
Okay, then shall we move on to the next one then by Julius,
Yes.
who is asking, what is changing in the coaching world in regards to Gen Z, who don't seem to stick to one place of work for long? Some leaders are afraid to invest in their teams that they may not have in a few years. Any advice?
Any coaches on the call that are specifically working with the Gen Z? Because I see some coaches on the call.
If I'm to answer that question, whether it's Gen Z or Gen Y, people will leave organizations. So the coaching aspect of it is to ensure that we have, as people leave and come, the team coaching, and what we're saying is about giving the teams the sovereignty, giving it a character, giving it a name or an identity, a way of being. Just like you coach one-to-one, the way of being. Yeah, that's what we are coaching the team to come out with. And whoever leaves definitely will leave with some of that way of being and take it to other organizations. But I can tell you that, and I can bet that as people come in, they quickly fit into the culture because it's become so strong and it becomes so it consumes the new people. So you can't stop people from leaving organizations, I don't think. And coaching as a team would help the organization to even keep even the Gen Zs, if they have an understanding of the shared purpose, they're able to communicate and they're able to see why they're in the team, their purpose in the team, how they can be of value to the team, how they can get the team can get their buy-in. All this that can come out in a team coaching conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And maybe I will just add two aspects. One of the things that we started off with when we're talking about this team coaching, remember we said there are several interventions that are related to team coaching. So sometimes when you come into an organization, they might even be asking you for team coaching, but is it team coaching that they require? So when you do that facilitation and you're having that engagement, you're able to see where the gaps might be so that some of the other interventions have to come in before you start having conversations. If you find, for example, a team that is heavily conflicted, you cannot dive in and begin talking about team coaching. It will not land. You want to work on those relationships first, maybe go through the team building activities, try to understand what is happening before you bring them to a space where you know that they are now ready for the conversations. In terms of the Gen Z, I think there's a lot that has been happening when we see through the different generations. And we begin to see a major shift from the time we see the millennials on board, the ones that are driven by purpose. Because, you know, we come from a point where leadership is learned and kind of imitated. So if you know what I mean, because the leader that you have is shaping how you're going to show up. So if your leader is in a different generation, guess what? They're not even going to understand you, but that is the one that you're trying to copy and try to align with them, okay? We know the other ones that at some point we are just following rules and regulations, okay? But by the time the millennials come in, one of the key questions they ask, what is your purpose? Dynamics in interview places have changed, that now the interviewee begins asking questions and asking tough questions. What is your purpose? They want to connect to something. And behold, the new world is coming to us. Did you hear the VP at Facebook, the one that is in charge of these digital things, resigned because he's not agreeable to the new policy around working from home? He said, no, 3 days are too many because COVID gave us a real shift. So I guess as leaders, it's time for us to say, how do we position ourselves to these dynamics that are happening? So that then you're understanding what is this role. Now we even have some teams that are 100% virtual. How are they working? but they are working. So if your mind, for example, gets stuck to say, I want everybody around me in the room, guess what? People are moving, because we are now talking about the Great Resignation. So some of these things, as we begin to think about them, we need to shift and understand what are the dynamics that are getting into teams and have these conversations so that they prepare us for the world that we have to encounter, not the world that as we knew it. Yes, thank you. Louise and Rita.
Yeah, well said, Joanne.
So thank you very much, Abiola and Joanne. And Joanne, you kind of have covered what I was asking, because I had two questions. The first one is, now you said that the new generation is driven by purpose, but a lot of people still are driven by money, compensation. And so my first question is there any kind of relationship between compensation systems for a team and this kind of coaching intervention? And this is my first question. And the second one is considering that how much remote working has impacted on team coaching. Thank you.
In terms of
Rita ask her question, maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, Joanne and Abiola. It's been really an inspiring session. And my comment or inquiry, and I don't know how it will go, is linked to the short-term employment contracts that are also kind of eminent in this day and era. And looking at when we're doing team coaching, how would you put this into perspective in respect to forming a strong culture within the organization? Because we say that we look at influencing, first understanding the culture and seeing how these people come on board. But there's a lot of young people who are doing short-term gigs. So how would you handle this kind of people in a team coaching where you're looking at long-term influence?
Okay, so whether they are contract-based, that's what I think you're saying. So they're not maybe on a full-time basis. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay, so and then their contract also probably will be renewable over a period of time. The main idea that what we're talking about is what is team coaching? You're coaching people who have shared purposes. And somebody who is on a contract basis in an organization must also buy into the values, the shared goals. They have things that they have to achieve at the end of the day, which needs to align with the organization's values, visions, and mission, or else they will not be part of that organization. And remember that even performance management now is becoming team-based. It's no longer one-to-one individual performance assessment. You start first from how is the team performing? Who are the key contributors to the team performance? And you begin to compensate them based on their contribution to the team. So if you say you are a contract short-term person and you're not sharing into the values, you are not pulling your weight, and you are not demonstrating the behaviors that is required by the team and the organization, then obviously you will be impacted in terms of compensation, in terms of appraisals and ratings that you get. So the system in organization now is becoming more team focused. And if you are in a team, you have parameters that will be used to evaluate you in terms of both the task and the human development aspect of your job.
Yes, and maybe the other piece around Rita's question, when we are coming up with the teaming agreements, there are those dynamics that we look at and ask, What will happen in case one of the team members drops off during the course of our team coaching? What will happen when we have new members coming on board? Because 12 months is a long time. So people are likely to join, others are likely to drop off. So all those scenarios, you paint them and then begin to think what is going to happen. And like Abiola was saying, the moment you form a culture, the ones who are just joining in, that's the culture that they find. They find you in a space where you're now having these open conversations. They find you in a place where probably you have built the trust, you're having the healthy conflict that Lencioni talks about. And so you join in and you realize this is an open environment. So guess what? You have to gel and bond with that. Likewise, if it's a toxic environment, the new person who comes into a toxic environment, guess what? That's what they will kind of run with. They flow with that culture that they find. That's why we are talking about team sovereignty, that at the end of the day, that's what you're kind of tapping into. And the gig economy is becoming real. Like we've said, with COVID, the gig economy became real. Now the question is, how are we beginning to look at our policies to begin kind of acknowledging what is happening in the work environment? We cannot get stuck where you're saying, you know what, for us, we are following the rules, the policy says this, and people are thinking, well, I can resign. If I resign, I will go and survive. I will go and have 4 or 5 bosses. I don't need to sit here. So we need to think about that reality and say, how do we then engage? So Louise, the gig economy, yes, somebody might sit back and say, this is what is happening. I'm from a country where we had the longest closure of schools, and the schools are struggling because teachers realize there's a lot else that they can do outside the classroom, and they are going to earn more from that. And guess what? That is impacting the school. So it's more of us being sensitive as leaders to what are the changes in the workspace that we must be cognizant of, and let's have conversations around this and not just kind of throw them under the carpet. Otherwise, we might end up with those stories of what was that company that missed the opportunity to Kodak. You know, Kodak missed the opportunity because they were stuck with their things, even when the person that started the camera on the phone was working with them. But because people saw things in a certain way, they didn't see the shift and they missed the opportunity. Thank you. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think, Manju, would you like to share?
Yeah, first, I wanted to share my appreciation to both you, Abiola and John, for giving us a clear understanding. I'm a total newbie in this field of team coaching, didn't know anything. And it was so nice to kind of hear what those different aspects and elements were that we need to kind of keep in mind. I have a curiosity question though. You know, the past 2 years with lockdowns and everything, I'm just curious to know, have you had the chance to do team coaching over Zoom, and how that went? Just a curiosity question, that's all.
Yes. Incidentally, John and I are actually currently doing a 12-month intervention with an international organization, and we are running team coaching for a team of 5, I think, on a monthly basis, and that's been going very well. And it's been virtual; it's been via Zoom.
All right. Yeah, because I was thinking, you know, with people turning the camera off, and it's kind of tricky to read into the body language and those, you know, nuances that we kind of tend to pick up when you're face to face. So good on you. I mean, and that shows your comfort and knowledge and ability in the field, I suppose, that you're able to run both online and face to face. So thank you so much.
Actually, one of the other teams that I worked with almost in the middle of COVID was a multi-country team. You know, there were no movements, and some of the frustrations were the fact that people were not moving. We had people based in Europe, in the US, Sub-Saharan Africa, in DRC, in Mozambique, in Malawi. So you can imagine that's the team that you're trying to bring together and have these conversations. There's a lot that we can do online. Yes.
Fascinating. Thank you, John.
Thanks. Louise, do you want to go?
Yes, I wanted to add something that I think Abiola and John, what you're doing is terribly useful, because I heard in Italy a research done by one of the university. It's because a lot of people are quitting their jobs, and they asked why they quit so much their jobs, because they said that with this remote working business, the job is so focused on the content and not the relationship anymore. And so while I was also listening to you, okay, I thought that this is really important, the human side, getting back online, the human side of a job, because this is apparently, this is based on this research, apparently this is one of the reasons why people quit their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing, Louise. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to? Oh, Angela, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I didn't have a question, but I just wanted to express appreciation and thankfulness for the session. I mean, I didn't know I participated in a little bit of team coaching as being a member of a team, but I didn't know too much about it. And this has really piqued my interest. I mean, the fact that you're doing it on Zoom, I mean, it's just been incredible. So anyway, I'm just really glad I had a chance to attend this session, and thank you both very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Angela.
you.
We've got a question in the chat from Brenda, who is asking, what is the longest you can work with a team during team coaching?
The general guidance is to consider a year, like 9 months to a year, because remember, the starting point is a facilitation process before you come into the actual coaching. So there's a bit of time that goes into that process of preparing, getting the team to that point where you're now going to come and begin discussing coaching. So you're literally looking at an intervention of about a year. And I think, was it one of these, I was having a conversation with Abiola and said, just think about it. If you have 15 members who you're going to put into a coaching conversation, how many sessions does those? We are talking about 60 sessions with your 15 individuals. Now, 60 sessions, if you decided to have even bi-weekly conversations in a team setting, you're going to have 24 sessions. So who is saving money? If you're going to have 24 sessions over a year, because in most cases, even when you're having these other ones, they're telling, okay, four sessions, there are 60 sessions in number. But when you decide, let's have this team coaching, yes, it's going to roll over a year. But guess what? You're going to have 24 sessions, maybe in that case, or even 36, whatever stretch that you're looking at it, but you're having more people in the pool other than just having this individual that you're running with for a year. And kudos to all those efforts, because I mean, the stories that these people bring on the table are very amazing stories. The only challenge, I always feel their pain when, it's almost one challenge after another. Then they say, okay, fine, I actually tried the other thing. Because what they're discussing is teams. And at CMA, we normally emphasize that, remember, you're dealing with minds. You're not dealing with an individual. I'm not dealing with you, Susan. I'm not dealing with you, Grace. I'm dealing with your mind. That is the dilemma that we face. And so this transformative engagement helps us to realize that we are dealing with the dynamics of the mind. So the more you bring this collective voice together, and to Priscilla's question, work through the dynamics of the formation, the storming, the norming, and then, you're now running with them. You have them on the same page. You're going to have better results than people being in silos. Those things where people duck when they see one leader this way, that one ducks to this other end, this one goes the other side. Why don't you bring those people to the table and begin having conversations? Because on that inside of them are desires, are intentions, are ambitions that need to be listened to, and then see how can the team then support them to grow together and have that collective voice.
Thank you, Joan. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to share or has a question, a comment, contribution? No? I actually have one. I was just thinking, if I may, I was just thinking about what Abiola shared about the systemic nature was almost like the Russian dolls fitting into each other. And I was just curious and wondering that when that team, because, you know, like I said, I've tapped into, I guess it's my unconscious knowing. I don't know whether it's conscious or unconscious about how the team is an entity with its own heart, its own soul, its own identity. And I'm just curious wondering that at the individual level, wondering whether it's possible that on an individual basis, yes, there might be some conflict, but as a team, each person tapping into that identity of the team, which overshadows or sort of supersedes the individual, and putting that aside, because you know it's almost as if you're stepping out from being an individual. Okay, I'm stepping now into this team identity where I have to drop whatever baggage or whatever beef, as they say, I have with the next person and work as that team.
Yes. Yes, because, you know, and the element that really we need to begin to understand is what the coach is doing is facilitating the process of learning, the process of understanding, and the process of reflection. So even where you have your own rigidity, you are able to bring it up and people can talk about it and get to a point where they understand some of these things. And if you understand other people's perspective, you can agree to disagree, and people know you for who you are and what your preferences are, then you can have better conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's about conversations. It's about having those constant communication and understanding each other. Now, when we now agree, because you see, we have to come together to agree on some things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we agree, it becomes binding on everybody, even though we have our own ways of doing things, but then we put the common goal, the shared purpose in front, and we run with it.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I was just, yeah, I mean, it was really more about the possibilities and the force of the team. Like what you said, you know, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. And so if we're all focused on the force of that whole,
Yeah.
that is where the understanding and all of that comes into play. So yeah, thank you. Yes. I think Julius has another question in the Q&A. He's asking, how do you apply team coaching in an organization that have multiple teams that are all critical to the mission?
I think what we need to look at is, I always go by the definition of ICF when it comes to team coaching. And the definition is that they have common goals. You are helping them to co-create and reflect in terms of mostly their dynamics and relationship. So to know whether this is a real team, maybe that's the question you're asking. Do we have real teams when they're scattered all over the place? Yes. What brings them together is their shared vision, their shared purpose. You have people who are on short projects for maybe 6 to 8 months, but they're still teams because they have a shared purpose, a shared vision, and they have a shared goal. That makes them a team. Does that answer your question?
Okay. I'm a little mindful of time. And I just want to remind everybody, this has been a very insightful, thank you all for your questions, by the way, because I think with each question, we've gotten a deeper understanding and appreciation of team coaching and the positive impact that it can have. I'm just going to put in the chat again the link for you to get your CCE units if you would so wish, by making that contribution of $20 to CMA. And I don't know whether Joan and Abiola, do you have any closing remarks?
Just to say thank you to everybody for staying behind and for being with us up till the end. We really appreciate you all. And without you, this wouldn't have been a success. Thank you so much. Joan.
Yes, thank you so much. There was a lot of dynamics trying to pull this together. Actually, we prayed for this session to say, guys, anything that glitches, and guess what? When we were trying to sign in, we actually had real glitches. We didn't know what was going on, but thank you so much that you finally signed in, and we are here together. So yeah, that's how much we value and treasure each one of you that has been on this call. And those questions are also giving us insights, because in coaching, we keep on saying, we keep on growing our muscles. There is no time where a coach sits back and says, I know it all. Actually, if you feel that you know it all, guess what? You're doomed, because coaching, there is no end to the growing. And that's why when it comes to credentialing, every 3 years, they're asking you to renew your credential, because that goes through a different dynamic. Have you attended these kinds of sessions? So for those of you who are hearing CCEUs, these are really continuous credit education units that as coaches we are supposed to have. So anytime your timelines of training are running beyond 18 months and you haven't done your credentialing, it becomes important for you to begin generating those CCEUs, because at the point of applying for your credential, they are going to ask you for 40 of them. So these are some of those that you can create and say, okay, how many have I had during the coaching week? You can have all your 40 in one coaching week. That's one of the reasons the International Coaching Week is there, because there's a lot of learning. But thank you so much, everyone, and blessings to each one of you. And I hope there is something that you can go to your teams and apply. Whatever it is that you're, just one thing that you'll go back and be able to apply to your teams. Maybe you're going to look at it differently. Now that you know that you're dealing with the minds, you're not dealing with individuals. Sometimes we are hard on ourselves, yet it's the mind that is grappling with things. Thank you so much. And thank you, Susan, for a great hosting that you've done. And Abiola, it's always a joy walking this journey with you, because last year we were together, this year we are together, and hopefully in 2023 we'll have something else to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye, everybody.
Don't forget to join us tomorrow.